Uh, Now what I'm going to do is to start talking about the type of works you will have to do as fresh people joining any organization as a microbiologist. Very simple, and the most frequently required work to be carried out is lab testing of microbial flora. How simple it looks, isn't it? But remember, when you go to the industry, there is a totally different situation, and there are so many things from which the microbial flora content is going to affect your production, your product, your process, and the technology which is to be used, and the customer's requirement. So lab testing of microbial flora will include raw materials, water used in the process, air used in the process, the working equipment, intermediate product, and final product. Now let me start with raw materials. While we are working in the college or the university, we get very standardized products made by well established laboratories. We get proper distilled water, we get proper media, we get refined products to use with. But industry always tries to use materials or the raw materials for their process which are cheap, which are easily available, which are available in abundant quantity, and which are available throughout the year. And there are many raw materials which are used in microbial processes which come from very different sources. It might be product like molasses for production of lactic acid, ethanol, yeast. It might be grains used in the preparation of beer. It might be grapes or other fruits in the production of wines. It might be fruits and vegetables which are coming in the canning process. It might be other products which are byproducts of other industries like uh, starches, starch hydrolysates, modified starches, which may go into your preparation of your products or for cultivation of the organisms which are finally going to develop your product. So now it is very simple. If you are working in a very big company where the protocols are already set, generally they will try to explain you what all media to be used, how much quantity of raw material to be used for testing, at what temperature the plate should be incubated, and you have to how to note down the results. But if you are working in a medium sized company or a small company, you are getting a great opportunity of learning, because that is the time when you have to make a decision that if I have to test the raw material, what is the quantity of raw material I should take, how much should be, how much, uh, whether I should check for coliforms, whether I should check for salmonella, whether I should check for spore farmers, whether I should check for yeast or mold, all this. And one has to understand in the manufacturing process, you have to decide on your own where the sample should be taken, how the sample should be taken, how the sample should be stored, and when it should be tested, how frequently the sample should be done, what dilutions you have to use, and when you have to see the when you have to see the observations, and what incubation temperature you have to select. For example, if you are looking for say product which is suspected to have coliform organisms, you might be looking for 37 degrees centigrade. But if you are processing the food like in the canning, you may require to check for high temperature thermophilic bacteria. If you are making a product which is going in the cold chain, you may be required to check for low temperature growing psychrophilic organisms. So This is how you are challenged, and you have to make your decision based on your observations of the process and experience you have got and the guidelines which have been given. The things look very simple, but try to understand that wrongly collected samples, wrongly stored samples, wrongly plated samples can give very um, confusing results, and whole of your process or whole of your approach to solving the problem get confused. So plating of raw materials is very important. Second thing is water. As you know that any microbial process, water has to be used in very large quantity. So if you have to check the water for coliform organisms, if it is for frozen food industry, it might be yeast and molds, and in certain cases it might be salmonella. And most of the time, all other organisms are not very important from water angle. Air in the manufacturing process for the cultivation of microorganisms, you have to give sterile supply of air as a source of oxygen, but at the same time, if proper precautions are not there, the air which has got abundant microbial flora can create problems in your process. So the air which you are supplying has to be tested for presence, and most of the time from air you will get fungal spores, spore forming organisms, and some wild yeast. So you have to check the integrity of the filters, you have to make a suitable device for sampling of the air, and then plating that sample liquid medium to check if there is any problem with integrity of the filters, and if that from the air you are getting any contaminants. Next is, industrial process uses lot of equipment. There will be vessels and pipelines and conveyor belts, packing equipment, filling machines, and all sorts of things. So all these equipment, if they are not sanitized properly, and if we don't confirm that desired sanitation is achieved by using suitable means and as a part of protocol, they can introduce contaminant in the product at different stages. So this type of equipment will have to check by swabbing certain surfaces which come in contact, taking samples from the sterilized pipelines before they are brought in use, and that way we have to ensure that the equipment is properly sterilized and is ready for use, and it is not going to be source of any problem in your process. Then working environment. The working environment become more critical basically in packing and filling areas where the product is likely to be exposed to environment. Atmospheric air quality needs to be checked from time to time because it might be a legal requirement in pharma companies. It is a good manufacturing practice in food and other products which are packed. A simple exposure of suitable agar media for a fixed interval of time in the packing and filter packing and processing area can give you a fairly good idea about the atmosphere and the microbial flora of the processing area. If you are going to go, if your product is going through cold chain, please be sure that you must check the, the air flora of cold rooms also, because cold climate supports a lot of fungi which grow on humid surfaces of packing racks and the walls and ceiling, and they may be a big source of contamination mainly from fungal spores. which can affect your product, which can affect your packing material, and which can affect overall quality of your product. Then the packing materials. The packing materials that come in immediate contact with the product, such as container, vessel, vials, ampoules, polybag, kraft paper, wrapping paper, may also need inspection to see that it doesn't carry microorganisms in any form, because there are instances, your packing material is not being properly handled, it is not properly being packed, it is transported under unhygienic condition or stored in environment which is full of dust or microbial microorganisms and fungal spores, especially during monsoon seasons. So packing material also requires some sort of device or some sort of system for plating and to see that it is not having any microbial load. Then product in process. When the product is being processed, we have to take samples at various stages and we have to check for appropriate organisms so that we know that the product is having microbial counts or contamination which is either absent or which is at a level which is acceptable in the finished product. If these organisms, so this is and this sampling can be, this sampling of the product in line can be done in several ways. We have to take sample in the solid or liquid form, we have to have provide suitable taps, and they should be hygienically cleaned, and sample should be collected. If the sample, if the process is going on in the, it is a continuous process, then you have to collect the samples in practically all shifts or when the batches are changed, and samples should be stored in the cold room till they reach the laboratory with proper marking. This is very important. Then we can of course check it by microscopy or staining as a quicker method, followed by bacterial cultures. The type of microorganisms, their growing characteristics, motility, etc. will give you a very good idea about the type of organisms which are present. Finally, the finished product. In most cases, microbiological testing is required for of the finished products for various reasons. For example, in case of vaccines and diagnostic antigens, both viral and bacterial, it might be for sterility of vaccine. If the vaccine is kill type or viable cells of vaccine, sterility testing of pharma products and like sterile saline, dextrosaline, and today even pharma products like tablet syrups which are taken orally, microbial limit test has come. In case of food additives like microbial polysaccharide like xanthan gum, monosodium glutamate, baker's yeast, dairy starters, and processed foods, they have to meet the legal requirements as laid down by Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Then if you are exporting the products, maybe you have to meet the requirements of US FDA. If you are making the product under AgMark, then there is requirement. If it is pharmacopoeia products which are classified, your product are classified under pharmacopoeia, it might be IP, it might be BP, or it might be USP. If you are having a product which is categorized under marine products, then Marine Product Export Development Agency has got its standards with regard to microbial limits in the finished product. If it is agriculture and processed food product, then there are APIDAS standards. If there are spices or spice based ingredients are gone into your products, then there are standards laid down by spice boards. At the same time, many big corporate clients and export market customers may demand specific microbiological requirements, or if you voluntarily go for standards like ISI, ISO, or any international standard like BRC, you will require to test your finished product to meet their requirements with regard to microbial layer. Most of the food products and food additives demand testing in presence of coliforms, staphylococcus, streptococcus, salmonella, yeast and molds, spore formers. Foods going through cold chain will ask for Listeria monocytogenes and Pseudomonas. It is important here to mention that appropriate records of testing like media used, its sterilization, volume of inoculum, incubation temperature and time, confirmation test, positive and negative control should be kept in proper record because it might be a regulatory requirement and it may be required by auditing authorities.